The world will not fall to darkness. I will not let it.
Because we were planning on visiting my father so we could swing by and see him as well. And for the first time, John actually sounded
Hi, I wanted to share something that happened to me many years ago, something I've never really forgotten. I'm from Ecuador, and when I was in high school, my family and I lived in a small apartment building. There were only 4 apartments, and everyone kind of knew each other. One night, a girl from the last apartment, who lived with her father, knocked on our door. She had run away because her father had gotten violent during an argument. My parents let her stay the night. That evening, while my dad was asleep, she sat with my mom and sister in the living room. They were trying to comfort her, but then she said something that made the air grow cold. She told them that a few nights earlier, she had seen someone, or something, in the neighboring apartment. A man, she called it. But this man was completely black, like a shadow made of darkness itself. No face, no features, just a solid black shape standing still, watching. We tried to brush it off as stress or imagination, but deep down, something didn't feel right. A few nights later, my twin brother and I were in bed. We shared a room, even the same bed, and we were lying back to back. I started breathing loudly to annoy him, just a dumb habit, but he quickly hit me with his elbow and said, "Stop it, let me sleep." I smirked, pretending innocence, but then we both heard it, heavy breathing. It wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't his. He hit me again, harder this time. "I said stop it!" But I whispered back, "It's not me." And then we froze. The breathing didn't stop. It was slow, deep, and right behind us, as if someone was standing next to our bed, leaning down over us in the darkness. We didn't move, we didn't speak. The only thing we could do was pull the blankets over our heads and call out for our mom. She rushed in, turned on the lights, but of course, no one was there. We told her everything, and even though she tried to calm us down, I could see it in her face. She believed us, because maybe, just maybe, the thing the girl saw that night was real. This happened about 11 or 12 years ago. I was a college student working as a cook at a bar and restaurant, so I was probably between 20 and 22 years old. Typically, once we closed for the night, my coworker and I would hang out and talk for a while at the kitchen entrance of the building. One night, I was driving back to my parents' house, where I was living while in school. I remember it was slightly chilly and somewhat foggy. It's usually about a 15-minute drive. It was after 3 a.m., and it had been a long shift, so about 3 to 5 coworkers and I hung out for a while after work before heading out. I was in the last 3 minutes of my drive. I had to turn right, go over a bridge, and my street was the second one down. When I was about halfway across the bridge, I saw something in the distance. I couldn't make it out just yet, but I figured it was some sort of animal crossing the road. Once I got over the bridge, my eyes couldn't look away from what I was seeing. It was a deer crossing the road, but only the upper half of its body was there, dragging itself across the pavement with no lower half at all. Deer are pretty common in my area, and where I lived, there were still some wooded areas left after new houses were built. This was a main road, and semi-trucks do occasionally pass through, though it's a bit out of the way from the nearest highway exits. The deer had been cut clean in half, its lower half was gone, and it dragged itself off the road before it eventually met its end. I moved too quickly to possibly hit it and put it out of its misery, and honestly, the deer was very big. I'm 6'3" and about 250 pounds at the time, and it was still a large animal. The next day, I went on a run before getting ready for work. I wanted to check the area near the bridge to see if the deer had made it to the field nearby. But when I got there was nothing. No blood on the road, no other half, not even a trace of the deer. This isn't necessarily a scary horror story, but it was one of the most graphic and unsettling things I've ever come across. Whenever someone brings up creepy or disturbing experiences, this is always the story I tell.
I like this course.
This happened in the middle of November 2023. I was 17. It was just after a snowstorm. The streets were silent, covered in fresh snow, and the sky hung low with gray clouds. Me, Julian, Dylan, Logan, Josiah, Bobby, carrying a literal axe like it was Skyrim, and Carlos, we were just out walking around town, doing dumb shit, like usual. We had just been at school and got chased off by security. Hearts still racing, we stumbled onto a snow-covered trail that none of us had ever really noticed before. No footprints, no tire tracks, just an untouched path leading toward the ocean, lined with tall, bare trees. It felt like something out of a movie, so we followed it. At the end of the trail, tucked away in the woods, was this old shed. It looked abandoned as hell. Half the paint was chipped off, the windows fogged with condensation, the wood all weathered and gray. The whole area was dead silent. No birds, no wind, nothing, just us.
Of course.
Julian and I were the first ones to walk up to it. There wasn't any weird smell. No dead animal stench or anything. Just cold, still air. We tried the door, but it was frozen shut. It didn't budge. That's when Dylan, Josiah, and Logan caught up with us. They were hanging back at first, just taking a break, but eventually we all circled the shed. There was a window on the right side, kind of high up. Dylan managed to slide it open and crawled in first. Logan followed him. Josiah was getting ready to go in next. That's when we saw it. Something, or someone, peeked at us from behind the shed. It was a human-like shape, but there was white fur, or maybe pale skin, around its head. Doberman-style ears, big, dark-rimmed, human-like eyes that didn't look right. They didn't reflect light like animal eyes usually do. They just watched. Julian froze, then he blurted,
"Shit! A dog! A dog! A dog!"
I saw it too, but it wasn't a dog. It had the wrong shape. Too tall, too upright, too aware. Josiah didn't wait. He turned and sprinted like his soul left his body. Logan hadn't seen it yet, but seeing our reaction was enough. He jumped out the window, landed on his stomach with a thud, and I'll never forget the words he shouted as he hit the ground.
"Dude, that ain't no dog!"
Then he was gone, took off straight into the trees. Dylan was halfway out the window at that point, struggling, legs flailing. He looked out, caught a glimpse, and just yelled.
"What the hell?"
He gave up trying to squeeze out, turned back inside, and kicked the door down from the inside. The door flew open and he ran like his life depended on it. Probably because it did. Me and Julian ran too, but we were laughing. That's how we deal with scary stuff. We laugh. But then Julian slipped on a patch of ice and face-planted into the snow. He laughed for a second, but when he looked back at the shed, his face changed, stone-cold serious. He got up and bolted past me, Carlos, and Bobby, who were standing near the trail entrance. We regrouped and took the trail back to the bridge. There was a tunnel under where we sometimes hung out. We were catching our breath, trying to figure out what had just happened. Julian couldn't even talk. He was pale and shaking. Logan tried to explain everything to Bobby, Carlos, and Josiah, who hadn't seen it clearly. Dylan had seen it too, but he barely said a word. He was still trying to make sense of it. 1 year later, in the summer of 2024, a few of us, me, Julian, Bobby, and Carlos, decided to go back. We found the shed again, but it was different, bigger, renovated, new wood panels, no condensation, fresh paint. The old creepy energy was gone, replaced by something colder, emptier, but deeper. We didn't stick around long. I'm 19 now. Time moves on. Life keeps going. But that night still sticks with us. Julian doesn't talk about it much. Dylan never did. Logan makes jokes about it, but he remembers too. We all do. And the one thing that still plays in my head when I think back to that moment, the image of that thing peeking out and Logan's voice echoing in my mind.
Dude, that ain't no dog.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
With light goes life. To my purpose. I don't like your attitude.
My name is Anushka. This is a true story that happened when I was just 10 years old. Every summer, my family and I go on a beach vacation with my father's friend's family. We usually visit Puri, a place filled with beautiful temples and golden beaches. It's a tradition, and we love it. Normally, we've stayed at well-known hotels, but that summer, we hadn't booked in advance. There were no rooms available. The staff told us one would open the next morning, so for one night, we had no choice but to stay at a smaller, lesser-known hotel. That hotel sat near a graveyard, far from the temples, far from the beach. But we decided it was just one night, so we would be fine. The day itself was wonderful. We played on the sand, watched the waves, and came back tired, ready for bed. And we all went to sleep early, but around 1 a.m., I woke up with a feeling I'll never forget. I couldn't breathe. When I tried to move, I couldn't. It felt like something heavy was pressing down on me, choking me. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't human. The room was pitch black, but in the shadows, I could make out a dark shape. I was only 10, and I screamed for my mother. For minutes, I couldn't breathe properly. My mother rushed to me, lifted me in her arms, and shook me awake. My father carried me out of the hall. The hallway had no lights, only an empty, lonely sofa. No staff at the desk, just a large glass door glowing faintly with moonlight. Outside, dogs barked and yelped. Their cries echoed through the night, making the scene even more terrifying. My father laid me on the sofa, trying to wake me. He patted my cheek until I gasped and finally caught my breath. As I looked down the hallway, I saw it, a figure, standing in the corner, watching me. It was tall. Its hair floated in the air, as if caught in a breeze. I thought it was a woman, but I knew it wasn't human. Its presence radiated anger. I was frozen. We went back to our room. I said nothing, not a word. The next morning, we checked out and went to a famous hotel. There, everything was normal. The rest of our vacation was perfect. But when we finally returned home, I told my parents what I saw. And that's when my heart stopped, because my mother admitted she had seen the figure too that very night, standing in the same corner, staring, silent. She never told me about it. I never saw it again. But from that day forward, I was never the same. The fear of the dark stayed with me. I couldn't walk into unlit rooms, couldn't face dark hallways in hotels, especially hotels near cemeteries.
I could cover the cosmos.
Hello, my name is Rumaiza. I've always wanted to share this story. This happened when I was about 11. It was a school holiday, and my siblings and I went to stay overnight at my aunt's house. We had so much fun, and when it was time for bed, the three of us slept on a mattress in the living room with my cousin. To give you a better picture, this is what the layout of my house looked like. That night, I couldn't sleep because of a sore throat and a cough, so I stayed up watching YouTube on my cousin's tablet. It must have been around 3 a.m. I wanted to sleep, but the coughing just wouldn't stop. Finally, I turned off the tablet, determined to get some rest. Just then, I heard my cousin's bedroom door open. From where I was lying, I could clearly see if anyone came out, but no one did. And I never heard the door close again. I called out my cousin's name, no answer. Goosebumps spread across my skin,
waste the
but I
day.
tried to ignore it. On the table in front of the door was a plastic bag. Suddenly, the bag's handle began to move. Startled, I called out my cousin's name again. The bag stopped. It wasn't the wind. First, the bag was
The
full
sky
of
moves
something.
behind us.
And second, the movement wasn't in one direction. It was shifting, almost tugging. And with all the windows shut tight, there was no wind inside at all. Frightened, I turned to face my sister and closed my eyes, but I couldn't shake off the fear. I opened them again and glanced at the black screen of the now-off TV. That's when I saw him. A man in a hoodie standing behind me, or at least
Your
in the
middle tower
reflection.
is under attack.
His stance suggested he was right there, looming over top of me. He looked like my cousin. It was only a reflection. Something inside me knew the truth. I turned around to check. No one was there. When I looked back at the TV, the figure had returned, only this time even closer. A wave of dread washed over me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't do anything except cry quietly to myself. The figure was coming closer and closer. I whispered a prayer, clutching my sister, and eventually it vanished. I squeezed my eyes shut until sleep nearly took me. But the feeling of being watched never left. When I dared to open my eyes again, he was there, sitting on the sofa behind me, one leg crossed over the other, elbow resting lazily on the armrest, staring, as if he had always been there, as if he belonged there. And behind him stood another figure, tall, pale, only his upper body visible. I couldn't take it anymore. I forced myself to get up, bolted into my aunt's room, and shook her awake. I told her everything. She didn't believe a word. She just gave me cough medicine and let me sleep beside her. Only then did I finally fall asleep. The next morning, I told my siblings and my cousin. None of them believed me either, but I know what I saw.
Radiant's courier
The
has
figure
been
in the
killed.
TV might have been my imagination, but how do I explain the moving plastic bag? And the thought of that being sitting casually on the sofa, watching me like I was the intruder, still gives me goosebumps. At the time, I lived in an old block of flats in Adhd, and right next to my home stood an abandoned hotel, a massive 6-story building that had been rotting away for years, even before I moved in. One day, me, my cousin, and my sister decided we'd finally explore it. The hotel was surrounded by a tall fence, but it was crumbling, full of holes. It wasn't hard to slip through. Inside, the place was worse than we imagined. Blood smeared across doors, broken windows, empty rooms torn apart by squatters. The air was heavy, suffocating, like the walls themselves were warning us to leave. Behind the hotel, we found a dead patch of grass and an old, run-down shed. We didn't get too close. Just standing near it made our skin crawl. And then we heard it, the sharp scrape of metal against metal, like someone sharpening a knife. We didn't wait to find out. We turned back toward the hotel. As soon as we opened that door, a foul stench hit us. Rot, decay, something like a dead body. Still, we pressed on. We climbed the stairs to the first floor, and, in the worst decision of the day, we split up. I crept into a room filled with old shelves, books, broken furniture. In the corner stood a massive, worn-down closet. At first, it seemed ordinary, but then, tap, tap, tap. The sound was faint, but steady, like long nails drumming up against the inside. My heart stopped when I realized it was coming from inside the closet. I bolted, out of the room, down the hallway, through the stairwell. My cousin and sister saw me and immediately followed. In the rush, I tripped hard, scraping my leg open, but I didn't dare stop. As we reached the exit, I made the mistake of looking back. There she she was, a woman, mid-20s maybe, long, greasy black hair, ripped, filthy clothes. She was standing just inside the doorway of the hotel, peeking at us from the shadows. That's when I knew we weren't alone in there. When we finally got home, I noticed my leg was bleeding badly from the fall, but the cut wasn't random. It had carved itself into the shape of a smiley face. I didn't believe in ghosts before that day. After what I saw, after what followed me home, I knew better. The hotel was torn down years later, replaced with new apartments. But for me, that night never left.
Of course.
Hey, my name is Ka. This happened to me about 4 years ago, and it still has me questioning the whole situation. One hot summer in the United Kingdom, I was going about my day until my mother, little sister, and I went over to my grandparents' house. We stayed there until it got dark. As we parked the car in front of our house, we all got out, shut the doors, and locked it. While walking to the door, I looked up at my bedroom window. That's when I saw it, a black silhouette, slightly slouched behind the curtain, just visible enough to notice. I had another sister who was home at the time, so I thought it was her trying to scare me. I called out to her, but the figure didn't move. I shrugged it off, thinking I'd laugh with her about it upstairs later, but when we walked inside, my heart dropped. She was sitting on the couch, studying. I started to panic. I knew I had seen someone or something staring down at me from my window. It couldn't have been my brother. He was asleep for work. Hesitantly, I walked upstairs and turned on the bedroom light. The room was perfectly normal, nothing out of place. I broke down crying to my mother about it, and she let me sleep in her room that night. Weeks later, I was finally back in my room. That's when something else began. My sister and I noticed a rotting smell in our bedroom. At first, only our mother picked up on it. She questioned us, but we were always clean. Still, the smell grew worse, and soon, my brother and mother were noticing it too. She asked my stepdad to break open a shelf, thinking a rat might have died inside, but there was nothing. And the stench only got stronger in the heat of the day, then faded at night. Eventually, I moved out of my room and started sleeping on the floor in my mother's room. My sister stayed behind. The smell drove my mother crazy. She finally called the council, who sent investigators. Nothing. Days later, she called again. This time, the police came. We lived in an apartment. The officers began knocking on doors upstairs, questioning neighbors, until they reached one unit. The door was locked, or at least it should have been. When they tried forcing it open, it felt heavy. Finally, they pried it open, and that's when they found her. Behind the door lay the body of an elderly woman. One of the cops rushed outside to throw up. She had been dead for days. Later, my mother sat my sister and me down. She told us quietly, "Girls, that smell you've been inhaling was a corpse." We were in utter shock. My sister asked if they knew how she died. My mother said, "They're not sure. She was found behind her front door, so maybe a stroke, maybe a heart attack." The saddest part, they discovered she had no family. She lived alone, and she died alone. To this day, I still wonder if the silhouette I saw in my bedroom window was her. Maybe she was reaching out. Maybe she's still in that room with me. My family has had a history of horror and terrible things. I can remember all the stories that my aunts and uncles would tell me, but the earliest story I can remember was told to me by my mother. It was the late 90s. My mother was 15 years old at the time, living in Puerto Rico with her family. My mother had a friend. For privacy, I'll call her Carmen. They were best friends. They always played together and had sleepovers. Carmen was a huge part of my mother's childhood. One day, when my mother and Carmen were playing outside, a man approached them. He wasn't the spooky, scary old man, or the creepy guy you'd hear about in kidnapper stories. He was tall and handsome. My mother and Carmen knew him. Everyone. He was well known around the church and the town for his kindness and good looks. He smiled, and they smiled
Your
back.
middle
They
tower
knew
is
him,
under
so they
attack.
thought they could trust him.
Hey, Lydia. Hey, Carmen. What are you girls doing?
Traverse the field.
He asked with his usual
Your
smile.
middle tower
My
is
mother
under
and
attack.
Carmen laughed and chatted with him. And then the conversation took a turn. He suddenly sighed.
What's wrong?
Carmen asked.
It's just that my
The
fridge
enemy's
is broken at
bottom
my
tower
house,
has fallen.
and no one wants to help me. I've asked all my friends, but they all said no.
Carmen looked at my mother and smiled. My mom knew that smile always meant Carmen had an idea.
You know, me and Lydia could help.
Carmen said brightly. His sad face lit up.
Really? I'd appreciate that.
Despite Carmen thinking it was fine, my mother didn't. She whispered,
Carmen, I've never even been to his house. Your parents would never allow it. And besides, he's strong and big. Why would he need our help?
Carmen just rolled her eyes and chuckled.
Don't be such a scaredy cat, Lydia. He's super nice, and we both know him. If you don't want to, I'll just go with him myself.
Before my mom could respond, Carmen was already walking toward the man's car. My mother froze. She wanted to call out, but she couldn't move. She just stood there, watching, as Carmen climbed into the car. The engine started. Carmen waved from the window. My mother forced a nervous smile and waved back as the car drove away. The next day, my mother was washing dishes when she heard voices in the living room. She peeked and saw Carmen's parents talking to hers. When they noticed her, they rushed over.
Lydia, dear, do you know where Carmen is?
They asked. Her parents stood beside her, waiting for an answer. My mother replied,
Yes, she went with Tulio to help him fix his fridge.
The room fell silent. Her parents looked concerned. Carmen's parents looked terrified. They thanked her, then quickly left. My mother felt uneasy. It was unlike Carmen to not come home. She always came home on the street next. A day later, my mother was walking to school when she noticed a commotion near a house. Curious, she walked over and froze in horror. Carmen had been crushed. Her body was stuffed inside a black garbage bag. Her face was twisted in terror. Her eyes rolled back. Behind the police tape, my mother saw Carmen's parents crying. After he had taken her to his house and killed her. It was one of his neighbors who discovered the truth. Their dog had run to the garbage bag, scratching at it. When the neighbor looked closer, they saw Carmen, and they immediately told the police. Nobody could believe it. The kindest, most trusted man in the town had done the most fatal thing. My mother never saw him again. But even now, she still has nightmares about him. I'm a young teenage girl, and this happened recently. I can still remember the image in my head, playing over and over again. I live in an apartment complex on the 3rd floor. I don't usually get visitors, and when I do, it's just my
The
aunties and
enemy's middle
cousins coming
tower
over.
has fallen.
On this particular day, I was lying on my bed, watching YouTube as usual. I don't have a phone anymore since it gave me a lot of trouble and then stopped working permanently. Anyway, after watching YouTube, I got up to greet my stepdad as he came home from work. After greeting him, I went back to my room where my brothers were in their bunk bed. I shared a room with them, so I never had privacy of my own. But as I was looking around, my brother suddenly said he heard knocking on the door. It was dark, and I didn't believe it at first. Since I hadn't heard it, I shrugged it off. But then, I heard it. My brother got up, but I told him to sit back down on the bed. I'm the oldest, and I didn't want my younger brothers opening doors for strangers. I walked up to the door. There was a chair right next to it. For some reason, I didn't want the person knocking to know anyone was home. So I didn't move the chair in front of the door to look through the people. Instead, I climbed onto the chair, leaning close, almost falling as I tilted my body to look. And that's when the fear hit me. I won't forget what I saw through the people. It was a masked man, wearing a blue raincoat, almost like some kind of government worker. He was standing slightly slanted to the side, but what terrified me most was the gun. He held it right up to the people, almost as if he wanted whoever was looking to see it. Heart racing, I slowly stepped down from the chair. I slipped off my slides so they wouldn't make a sound. I turned to my brothers and gestured with my hand, shaping a gun, warning them to be silent. I quickly shut off all the lights and ran into my stepdad's room to tell him what I had just seen. What made it worse was that right before the man came, the electricity went out, and the internet too. That made it feel even scarier. My brothers ended up coming into my stepdad's room as well. We used the flashlight on his phone since the ceiling light in his room didn't work. The knocking continued. My stepdad wanted to check the peephole himself, but I wouldn't let him. I was too scared that even the slightest sound would give us away. We stayed in the room for over an hour. Eventually, it seemed like the man had left because we heard a little boy and his parents walking into their apartment on our floor. We could also hear kids playing downstairs on the first floor. That was when I finally called my mom and asked if we could go to my aunt's house. Without telling her what had happened, we left in a hurry. I never saw that man again, but the thought still terrifies me. What if I had let my brother open the door? I'm currently 28 years old, but this story happened when I was just 7, and I still remember it to this day. I used to go to a local park with some friends. We had been going there for almost 2 years. But over the last 5 months, we noticed something strange. Every single day, there was a short, fat, creepy old guy who would sit on a nearby bench. He'd just watch us and other kids for hours with this unsettling grin on his face. We stupidly went there without any parents or guardians, since the park was close to our house and our parents trusted us. This was back in 2003. And we were so young we didn't have phones to call for help. About 2 weeks after we started to feel uncomfortable with him watching us, he finally came over. It was just me and my 3 friends in the park that day. He walked up and asked us if we wanted to go to his house to play video games and check out his new dog. Since we were kids, we were foolish, and we agreed. It sounded fun, and for a moment we thought maybe he was just a kind guy after all. But we were very wrong. He said his house was about a 20-minute walk from the park, so the 4 of us walked with him. About 10 minutes into the walk, a cop car drove by and started to slow down. The passenger cop leaned out the window, staring at us. The man told us to walk faster, saying that way we'd get more time to play games and to see his dog before having to leave, so we picked up the pace. But then, the cop car suddenly made a U-turn, and a loud voice shouted,
"You there, free! Put your hands on your head! You're under arrest!"
We froze, confused and scared. The man bolted, but because of his age and size, he didn't get far. One cop tackled him to the ground and cuffed him, while the other officer asked us if we were okay and what had happened. We told him everything. He nodded and said it was very lucky they drove by when they did. Another cop car was called to drive us home, while the first car took the man to the station. The police explained everything to our parents, and from that day forward, we were banned from going to that park. At the time, my parents thought I was too young to understand the details, but when I turned 13, they finally told me the truth. That man was a known sexual offender. He called what he did his hunting, and he did it at local parks. That revelation terrified me. I started thinking about what could have happened to me and my 3 friends if that cop car hadn't driven by and stopped him. And honestly, I don't even want the answer, because I already know what it would have been. The police didn't share many details about his punishment, but my dad told me that one officer said the man would get at least 15 years in prison for his other crimes. My name is Dhruv Prajapati, and I am from India. I'll tell you about an experience I had on Dumas Beach that still chills me to the bone. Dumas Beach in Surat has always been a place wrapped in mystery and dark rumors. People say it's haunted, and over the years, countless stories have circulated about strange sounds, vanishing shadows, and eerie figures that wander the sands at night. As curious as I am, I never really believed in any of it until one night changed everything. It was a rare weekend night, and some friends and I decided to hang out on Dumas Beach after sunset. We'd heard the rumors, the tales of restless spirits, unexplained disappearances, and how people seemed to disappear into the mist along the shore. But we just laughed it off, convinced it was nothing but local folklore meant to keep people away after dark. As we walked along the beach, the only sounds were the waves crashing and our voices echoing strangely in the emptiness. Then, without warning, an icy gust of wind swept across the beach. It cut right through us, and we all felt the sudden chill. One of my friends even joked,
Maybe it's one of the ghosts.
but the laughter faded when we heard it, a whisper, faint and breathless, like someone was speaking just behind us. We stopped, our senses on high alert, and looked around. There was no one. The beach was empty. I brushed it off, figuring it was just the wind, but something felt wrong. I remember hearing that the beach was once a Hindu burial ground, and that maybe, just maybe, the souls of those buried here hadn't yet found peace. As we walked further, my flashlight started flickering, and a thick, eerie mist began to roll in. It was denser than anything I'd ever seen. Just then, one of my friends gasped and pointed at the ground. There, right in front of us, were footprints, appearing in the sand as though someone invisible was walking straight toward us. Our nerves got the better of us, and one of my friends whispered,
Let's get out of here.
I didn't need to be told twice, but something, maybe my curiosity or something else, held me back for just a moment longer. I looked down at the footprints moving closer, step by step, almost as if they had intent. And then, for just a brief second, I saw it, a shadow-like figure, its hollow eyes staring directly at me. The look in its eyes wasn't anger, it was something else, a mix of sorrow and warning. Heart racing, I stumbled back, and my friends and I broke into a run. As we sprinted back, I could hear faint whispers following us, growing louder, and footsteps closing in behind us. When we finally reached the entrance to the beach, where the glow of the streetlights met us, we dared to turn around. The mist had already thinned, and the beach looked silent, almost peaceful, as if nothing had ever happened. To this day, I have never gone back. Hi, I'm Aaron. For the sake of the story, I'll be keeping my family's names private, so my brother will be called Ken, and my cousin will be called Damien. This happened about 6 years ago. It was a cold December evening in 2019 when my family and I visited our local McDonald's. I was 12 years old at the time, my brother Ken was 10, and our cousin Damien was 14. We had all been looking forward to a simple evening of food and playtime. As we walked in, we started ordering food, but our attention was quickly pulled aside. A large, muscular man was shouting angrily at a woman, his voice carrying through the glass. Suddenly, I saw him grab my mom's hand. My heart jumped, and I shouted at the guy to shut up, but my aunt quickly gave him a sharp look, silently telling me not to get involved. And honestly, I thank her for that, because things could have gotten much worse. Inside, my aunt kept paying for the food. Ken turned to me and asked,
Man, what's going on?
I whispered back, I don't know, let's just focus on the positives. Damien looked pale, scared, and I tried to reassure him with a smile.
Don't worry, things will get better, I promise.
We hugged each other, holding on, as the woman and the man stormed into the restaurant. That's when things completely spiraled. The woman screamed.
I told you, I don't have your money, you pig.
The man roared back, calling her a lying bitch. Dozens of customers froze, parents, kids, families, all staring in shock as the fight escalated. A female employee stepped forward and snapped,
Get out now, or I'm calling the police.
The atmosphere was heavy with fear. My aunt leaned toward me and whispered again to stay out of it, so we tried to eat quietly, though our hands were shaking. The playground in the corner, once exciting, suddenly meant nothing. Ken and Damien kept saying,
The cops are coming.
like it was the only thing keeping them calm, but the truth was far darker. I excused myself to check on my mom, and that's when I saw something I'll never forget. The man had calmed down. He stood talking with a friend, a rough-looking guy with his girlfriend by his side. And then I noticed it. 3 shotguns, tucked into the man's back, hidden under his jacket. My blood ran cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just forced myself to walk away, praying he hadn't seen me notice. Back at the playground, I sat in silence, my mind spinning, trying to process what I had just seen. Moments later, the police arrived. They questioned the woman, and they spoke to my mom. We soon left the restaurant, still shaken and talking about what happened. But it wasn't over. As we drove away, we saw flashing lights at a nearby gas station. The man and his friends were in handcuffs, being pushed against a squad car. That's when my mom explained what really happened. The man had tried to snatch the woman's purse. When she resisted, he slapped her. She gave her statement to the police, and we drove home, grateful it was finally over. Seeing that man in cuffs gave us closure, but it also left me with a memory I'll never forget. Now, at 17, I still look back on that night. The night a normal trip to McDonald's turned into something I'll carry with me forever. My name is Chen, and I am 15 years old. This happened when I was 10. Back then, I lived in a small town in Manitoba, Canada. After this night, my family moved to Portage La Prairie. For some context, I loved volleyball. Even though I wasn't very good at it, I wanted to play. I remember begging my parents to register me for after-school volleyball, but I would always chicken out. Now, onto the story. It was a Sunday night. My parents were at a gender reveal party, and my brother and I decided not to go, since they said it would be boring for us. After playing with my neighbor, I went back inside and into the room I shared with my brother. I started tossing around the volleyball my parents had bought me. I was knocking things over, but luckily nothing broke, or I would have been in big trouble. I kept practicing, setting the ball into the air. At one point, I purposely hit the attic door. It didn't even have a handle to pull it down. But being the mischievous kid I was, curiosity got the better of me. I went to the garage and asked my brother to help me carry a ladder upstairs. He didn't ask questions, just helped me. Before climbing up, I grabbed one of those sticky hand toys I had from trick-or-treating. I climbed the ladder, slapped the sticky hand onto the attic door, and tugged until it came down. Then I climbed into the attic. It was pitch dark. I struggled to see. All I could make out was a couch, some food scattered across the floor, and an old bathtub we had left up there years ago, still holding dirty water. And then I saw him, a man, late 50s, balding, teeth rotting, smelling like he hadn't showered in weeks. I froze and then let out a massive scream. As I scrambled back toward the ladder, he lunged at me. I was only 4 steps from the bottom, but I didn't wait. I jumped. I yelled at my brother to run, and without any explanation, we bolted to our neighbor's house. We banged on their door until they opened. Shaking, we told them everything. They called the police. When officers went back to search the attic, the man was gone. Our neighbor also called our parents, and they rushed home immediately. Before the police left, they asked me for a description. I gave them every detail I could, but that was it. That night was the last time I ever saw him, and I'm still recovering from it.
To earn my place anew. Yes.
This happened in 2012 when I was 10 years old. My family of 7 had just moved into a new house in a sketchy neighborhood. There had already been several deaths in the block, and some houses had even been destroyed by fire. The house itself was old, very old. The basement looked like something out of the Italian catacombs. It was completely unfinished, with nothing but dirt for a floor. When we moved in, we noticed the basement door had been locked with a chain from the inside. That should have been our
Your
first
bottom
warning.
tower is under
There was also a
attack.
lot of windows throughout the house. To get from my room to the bathroom, I had to walk past the kitchen and the back door. Anyone who grew up in a rough area knows how unsettling it is to walk past uncovered windows at night. That detail will matter later. I shared a room with my older brother Nick. I was always a pretty paranoid kid and had trouble falling asleep, which is embarrassing to admit, but I used a nightlight until I was 12. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up with a full bladder. I tried to ignore it, but the urge became unbearable. I hesitated, gathering my courage, before finally making my way to the bathroom. I walked slowly, cautiously checking every window as I passed. Everything seemed normal. I took a few more steps and turned into the living room, and my heart sank. A homeless-looking man stood at our back door, his hands cupped around his eyes as he peered inside. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Then, moving as silently as I could, I ducked behind the couch. My mind raced. Did he see me? I needed to wake up Nick. He was 3 years older than me and had a cell phone. I didn't. I began crawling toward our room when I heard something that made my stomach drop. The back door lock turned. This man, this stranger, had a key to our house. For the first time in my life, I whispered, "Shit." I pressed myself tighter against the couch, barely daring to breathe. The door creaked open. The man stepped inside, moving carefully, quietly, as if he had done this before. He was tall, around 6'2", with a long, graying beard that reached his chest. A hat and a hoodie concealed most of his face. He walked into the kitchen and opened our pantry, casually pulling out a bag of chips. Then, without hesitation, he unbolted the basement door and disappeared down the stairs, leaving it unlocked. For a moment, I just sat there, paralyzed. Then, panic set in. I realized something terrifying. He would hear my footsteps if I tried to move. My mind raced for a solution. I spotted my little sister's blanket draped over the couch. Carefully, I pulled it toward me and slid my feet onto it, using it to muffle my steps as I made my way toward the kitchen. The basement door was only a few feet away. I swallowed hard and whispered to myself, "Sweet." Then I sprinted. I reached the door and slammed the bolt shut, just as I heard heavy footsteps pounding up the basement stairs. A loud thud rattled the door. I turned and bolted up the stairs leading to my parents' bedroom, grabbing a knife from the kitchen counter as I ran. I shook my dad awake, my whole body trembling. There's a man in the basement. I managed to stammer. My dad shot up instantly, grabbing the knife from my hand. He was a military veteran, a big guy who worked out every day. If anyone could handle this, it was him. My mom, meanwhile, called the police. They said they were 5 minutes away. She didn't want to leave my little sister downstairs, so she took my hand, and together we made our way back to the kitchen. Just as we stepped onto the floor, the basement door
The
exploded
enemy's
open.
top tower has
The
fallen.
man tackled my dad, sending them both crashing to the ground. They struggled, fists flying, my dad trying to pin him down. I didn't think, I just reacted. I sprinted to the kitchen, grabbed another knife, and rushed toward them. My hands shook, but I raised the blade, ready to stab the man.
Give it to me!
My mom shouted. I hesitated but handed her the knife. Without missing a beat, she stabbed the man in the back. He let out a strangled cry, giving my dad the chance to overpower him. My dad flipped him over, pinning him face down with his arms locked behind his back. I stood there, panting, my heart hammering in my chest. Then the sirens. The police stormed inside.
Dire's
My
structures
siblings,
are
now
fortified.
awake, ran into the room, screaming at the sight of the blood-streaked floor. My older sisters pulled me into a hug, wiping away my tears as I shook uncontrollably. The man survived the stabbing and was taken to the hospital before being
Your
arrested.
middle tower is under
But the
attack.
scariest part, we never figured out how he had a key to our house. That night still haunts me. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know how long he had been coming and going. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't locked that basement door in place. But I do know one thing. My mom didn't let me stay there. She didn't let me carry that weight for the rest of my life. And for that, I'll always be grateful.
Hello, my name is Hayden. This happened to me about a year ago when I was 17. It was the middle of the day, and I was at a rehearsal for a sketch comedy group. It was lunchtime, and my friend, let's call him Ron, asked if I wanted to go with him to get something to eat. I agreed, got in the passenger seat of his car, and we started looking for a fast food place. Ron spotted a Wendy's nearby and asked if I wanted to eat there. I said, sure. When we got inside, there was a short line. One person in the line stood out to me. It was a man who looked to be in his mid-20s, African-American with a hoodie, gray sweatpants, and sandals. He looked normal, nothing out of the ordinary, but I had a gut feeling that there was something wrong here. Something about it just felt off. When it was our turn to order, the man left through a side door that was on the opposite side of the building from the entrance that we had used. We ordered our food, and Ron chose a table that was right next to the door the man had just left through. We sat down across from each other. I looked out the window. I noticed that there was a red bike parked right outside, but I didn't think anything of it. I reached into my bag to grab my food. When I looked back up at Ron, I froze. The man was outside the window, staring at Ron from behind. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. Creeped me out, to say the least. Ron hadn't noticed him, but then I saw something that scared me. On his back was a holster, and in that holster was a machete. I looked back at Ron, lowered my voice. Ron, don't look behind you. There's a man staring at you from outside, and he has a machete. Ron's expression changed, but he didn't panic. He simply sat there and said, okay. We sat there quietly, not knowing what to do other than wait for the man to leave. We looked at each other and started to smile and giggle uncomfortably to lighten the mood. The man finally moved after about a minute or two, and I watched him to see where he would go. He moved around to the back of the restaurant, pressed his face up against another window. Again, he stared at us with his wide, bloodshot eyes, and I could see the handle of the machete clearly. I tried to think of what I should do next, so I got up and went up to an employee, told him what was happening, and asked him to call the police. He gave me this lazy look and said, I will. I went back to my seat and got an idea. I wanted to take a picture of the man to show the police, but I didn't want the man to know it. So I took out my phone and aimed it at Ron while very subtly angling it to get that creepy man in the background. Smile, I said to Ron. He seemed to understand what I was implying, and he faked a pose. After taking the pictures, I noticed that the few other people in the restaurant still somehow hadn't noticed this man, so I got up and told them. And when they saw him, I could tell that they were frightened. They started to talk amongst themselves about what should they do. Well, I thought about trying to leave, but with the man outside, I did not want to take that risk, knowing who knows what he would do if we tried to leave. The man could also easily come inside and do God knows what, and I realized that we were pretty much trapped. The man still had his face pressed up against the glass, standing perfectly still, staring at us with these wide, bloodshot eyes. I soon realized that the worker had never actually called the police, because if he had, they would have been there by that time. So I got annoyed and decided to take things into my own hands. I took out my phone again and I dialed 911. As soon as I did, the man moved. My heart dropped. The man started to circle his way back around to the side door next to our table. I thought that he was going to come inside. Instead, luckily, he got on that bike that was parked right outside our window, and he rode away. I watched as he rode behind another building, and I breathed this sigh of relief. Ron got the restaurant manager while I described what the man looked like to the police. He told me that they would look for him, but they probably wouldn't be able to charge him with anything since he technically hadn't really committed any crimes. All they could do was ban him from the location. The police told us to stay put until they called back, so Ron and I sat down back at our table to finish our meal. And while we were eating, I was obviously afraid that the man would come back, but luckily he never did. We saw police in their cars outside searching for him. When the police finally called back, they told me that they couldn't find anyone who fit the description I gave them, but they were sure it was safe to leave. So I thanked them and hung up. When we finished our food, we carefully stepped outside and looked around to make sure that the man was truly gone. Then we dashed into the car and drove back to theater practice. I had to call our director and explain why we were 30 minutes late. When we got back, Ron and I had a good laugh about it with our friends about the experience, but I'm 18 now and the man has still never been caught. Ron and I still like to talk about the story from time to time. We think that he was definitely some sort of mentally ill, and I'm pretty sure that he was on some sort of drugs since his eyes were so bloodshot. I try to think of logical reasons for why he could possibly have a machete. Like, maybe he was a gardener or something, but that really still wouldn't explain his weird behavior. I'm sure he didn't have any good intentions, and I'm glad the series of events ended up playing out the way that it did, because things could have ended up much, much worse.
I grew up in the Philippines, and as a kid, I was always climbing tall trees, getting into mischief, and running around the countryside. That wild, curious energy pretty much defined my childhood. I was about 10 years old, just lounging in my room, bored and restless. Then something outside caught my eye. There was a rambutan tree, its bright red fruit ripe and ready to be picked. The tree stood next to an old set of ruins in the house, a place we were always told to stay away from, but never really listened. I climbed up the rambutan tree, completely focused on my prize. I sat on one of the branches and started eating, with sweet juice dripping down my chin. That's when I saw something move. In the shadowy window of the ruins, something flickered, just for a second, then vanished. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was seeing things. That place had been abandoned for years. No one lived there. No one could live there. As I was finishing my first piece of fruit, it happened again. Only this time, it didn't vanish. It stopped, and it stared back at me. Two figures were standing in the broken window. They were humanoid, but not quite. Their skin was leathery, their bodies round and bulky, and their backs were covered in something that looked like a turtle shell. Their eyes glowed red, and their mouths, if you could call them that, were jagged like a snapping turtle's jaw. A chill raced down my spine, and my whole body locked up in fear. I lost my grip and fell. I hit the ground hard, scraped up and bruised. I scrambled to my feet and ran barefoot all the way home. I didn't care about the pain. I didn't feel it. I didn't care that I'd left my slippers behind. I just knew I had to get away. I never told my family what happened. I figured they wouldn't believe me, or worse, they wouldn't care. Years passed, and I almost convinced myself that I'd just been an imagination. Then, one day, I was talking to my grandmother, and she started reminiscing about an old house nearby, one that had been abandoned for decades. I asked her why no one ever bought the place. Her answer stopped me cold. "Well," she said, "I can't blame them. Two people hung themselves in that house." I didn't say a word, but in my head, all I could see were those two turtle-like creatures standing in that ruined window, watching me. After she told me that, I remember going home and drawing pictures of what I saw. The house, the figures, the glowing red eyes. A constant reminder that it wasn't just my imagination, and that it was reality.
This is a story my grandmother told us that took place when I was 7 years old. To give you all some brief background, my grandma during the whole period worked for a prestigious family. She was in charge of the deaths and every heir of that family in a specific time frame, and everything has to do with these wealthy heirs. So my granny was well acquainted with everyone there. She worked in one of the many abodes of that family. talking about old money suites with all the old-fashioned furnace and expensive porcelain porches with a circular entrance around an old fountain, Corinthian walls and gargoyles. It's what we call, today, a Gothic mansion, a typical haunted house. The interior is dusty, since the family doesn't really visit there anymore. It's only being kept clean by the maids and the house caretaker. My grandmother's office is located right at the entrance. Large wall windows from ceiling to floor covered by thick velvet curtains. The view from the windows expands the whole gate entrance and the fountain, as well as the second entrance through the garden. Gran really has a 90-degree view of the whole place. Keep in mind that both of the only entrances to the mansion are guarded by security, and my granny can see the people that are entering even before they knock on the door, since she keeps the curtains open always. After school, me and my cousin, 5 at the time, come to this place instead of going straight home, since the caretaker of the mansion was kind and let us play by the garden and the driveway. But this particular day, we stayed inside the mansion, just playing by the fireplace, just across from my grandma's desk. I remember I saw my grandma look through the windows, stand abruptly, telling us that someone's coming and we must be here. She exited the large doors and proceeded to greet the 2 women that had already passed the gate, which is weird because the guards should have alerted her about them already, and she would have heard the old squeaky gates being opened to let them into the premise. But she brushed it off, offered a smile to these 2 people, thinking they must be the new heirs that her boss told her to expect that week. But as they were gradually approaching, my grandmother noticed that one of the women was glaring at her with a scowl that sent shivers through her spine, while the other was smiling so sweet at her. Nonetheless, she glanced them. Hello. But they didn't return the greeting. She just stood there, halfway through the steps. It was only then that she saw what they were wearing. Now, this story took place on the years 2008, 2010-ish. The women were wearing long, black dresses with laces and high necks. My grandmother thought it was weird, but just told them to come inside so they can process the insurance of the checks in her office. She turned her back on them, pushed the heavy door inside again, leaving it open to let them through, and just briskly walked to her desk, past me and my cousin. She was expecting them to follow her in, but several minutes passed, and not one shadow of the guests entered the mansion. Grandma sighs and glanced out the windows, expecting to see the guests still standing outside. To her shock, she saw no one. I don't remember much from the video, but my grandma said that me and my cousin were staring at the doors as if we were seeing something, and I pointed to the door, saying, "Aren't you gonna come inside?" My grandmother whipped her head to the window, praying that maybe she just missed it the first time. Still, there were no women dressed in these weird clothes outside. She could see the gates from where she was standing. And to her horror, they were locked in deadbolt. These locks can only be opened with keys that the guards, the caretakers, and my grandmother had. My grandmother shakily walked toward the front door, where me and my cousin kept staring still. But when she turns around, there was no one there as well. She looked at us confusedly, but me and my cousin are both in our own worlds again. My grandma frantically ran outside to check that she wasn't going crazy, that what she saw couldn't be what she thought it was. When she reached the front gates, the guard stationed there asked her what was wrong. She immediately accused him. Why didn't he notify her when 2 guests arrived? The guard looked at her in confusion and told her no one had come the whole afternoon. The gate had been locked since the morning when she arrived. She paled, pulled him about. Maybe they entered the second entrance around the garden. But the guard insisted that that's impossible since the gate hasn't been used forever. It's been sealed shut. My grandmother, now lightheaded, called her other office mate to come to the office immediately because she felt sick to her stomach. She doesn't want to admit it yet. And when her office mate comes unbothered, carrying 2 large boxes and sees how pale my grandmother was, she asks worriedly if she needs someone to drop us off at home because my grandma did not look good. But my grandma told me she's fine, asked what was in the boxes. The office mate told her that it was some old albums that their boss gave them to dispose of in the old mansion, and some trinkets that are deemed useless to this wealthy family. They browsed the old albums together, me and my cousin included. It was full of these black and white pictures dated early 1900s. My grandmother started muttering curses and prayers. But her coworker asked, "What is wrong?" She told her the incident a while ago and said, "That's them." And one of the older pictures stated 1912, 2 women arm in arm, one smiling, one frowning. The rest those long black dresses. What made my grandma absolutely lose it was that my cousin gave her beside me when the girls said, "They have feet here. They were missing them a while ago."
Your bottom tower is under attack.
This story happened to me back in 2014 when I was in 4th grade. Back in the day, all of my classmates and I used to talk about this fictional horror character called Slenderman. You might be familiar. He appeared in some of the horror movies that were made at the time, so everyone at school knew about him. Anyway, one night I was sleeping alone in my room when I had this nightmare about Slenderman. In the dream, I was at the local aquatic center getting ready for my swimming lessons. Then I saw Slenderman standing in the middle of the hallway between the locker rooms, just looking at me. He started chasing me. I ran as fast as I could in the dream and woke up just before he could touch me. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. I ran to my parents' bedroom with my heart beating like crazy. I told them about this bad dream and asked if I could sleep near them. My parents agreed and let me sleep in the middle of the room. I think it was about 30 minutes before I woke up to this loud noise. My dad woke up too and figured out that the house's fire alarm had been going off for about a minute. My parents checked around the house, searching for any signs of fire, but there was nothing wrong. So at this point, I was really scared. But my parents went back to sleep, and eventually, so did I. My parents told me that the fire alarm was faulty, and that's why it went off randomly in the middle of the night. But this had never happened before in my entire house. Since then, a small part of me has always wondered if there was a connection between my nightmare and that seemingly random malfunction.
This happened back in 2015. I lived way out in the country, miles from town, with no real neighbors nearby. So seeing a random person walking around the property, that would already be strange, and that's exactly what happened. My dad was outside when a man came out of nowhere and offered him Pepsi. Just like that, no introduction, no explanation, just,
"Want a Pepsi?"
My dad said no, smartly, because who knows what could have been in that drink. After he declined, the man left. Later that day, we were heading into town. My mother, father, my 2 sisters and I all piled into the truck, ready to make a quick Walmart run. Now, to give you a little background, we're surrounded by orchards out here. Almonds, pistachios, grapes, endless rows of trees in every direction. So, to get to town, we have to take this long dirt trail winding through all that farmland. As we were driving, we passed something that made all of us go quiet. A black van. It had curtains drawn across the windows, like someone was hiding something. And the smell, I can't even explain it. Rotten, chemical, and sharp all at once. It made your eyes water. The man behind the wheel was dressed all in black, wearing dark sunglasses, even though the sun was setting. And when he looked at us, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, a smile that made your skin crawl. I knew right then something wasn't right. We made it to Walmart, did our shopping, and came home. But as we pulled up to our driveway, something felt off. There were fresh tire marks in the dirt, footprints too, but we brushed it off. People work the orchards around here all the time, probably just workers passing through, or so we thought. That evening, My older sister pointed something out, flashes of red and blue in the sky. We all ran outside and saw a helicopter flying overhead. Now that is strange. Helicopters are rare in our small town. We had no idea what it was doing here, and we all just stood there, watching it pass in silence. But the next morning, everything made sense. It became horribly, horribly clear. We woke up to the news. A body had been found in a canal not far from us. Severed, fingers missing, eyes gouged. And when they released his photo, it was the man who had offered my dad Pepsi. That man, the one just wandering around our property. He was the victim. And the killer? The man in the black van. The one with the smile. The one we passed on that trail just hours earlier. We watched in silence, stunned. Every red flag we had ignored the day before now burned into our mind. We had looked into the eyes of the murderer, but he just kept driving. This is a true story from when I was about 4 years old. According to my mother, I suffered from sleep disorders that led to some weird behavior when I was a kid. My father was always working and doesn't remember much about it, but my mother and brother do. According to them, whenever I walked past an empty house, I would ring the doorbell and say,
Peekaboo will open the door.
They also said that sometimes I would stare down a hallway and whisper. The figure I claimed to see was called Peekaboo, a boy with messy, disheveled hair and tattered clothing. Like a worn-out doll stitched back together, he would shout,
Peekaboo!
in a high-pitched voice, and just hearing it would send chills down my spine. The scariest moments happened when I would wake up screaming, as if my lungs were about to burst. My mother would rush to me, and I'd cry.
Peekaboo! He's coming for me!
This is what I remember. I was sleeping in the master bedroom, a square room with a walk-in bathroom. Peekaboo was standing silently in the bathroom doorway, staring at me, and then suddenly bolt toward me, screaming, Peekaboo! That's when I remember. This continued for 2 years, just like that. Around the same time, I was going through a divorce, and my mother eventually left our home. Afterward, I split time between my mom's house and my dad's house. When I was about 10 years old, I asked my mom if she remembered anything about that strange house. She looked at me with a serious expression and said, Emmett, that house was built on a spiritual foundation. When I would wake up at night, I could hear something moaning and growling under my bed and beneath the master bedroom. I felt like I was going to throw a fire at. Who was the boy I said? Who was Peekaboo? Was it the devil, or was it something else? Yes, my
My old college roommate, Dylan, lives just outside of Denver. Like most Colorado natives, he loves to camp. The crazy kind of camper who does it all year, even in December. Whenever he goes to the mountains alone, I have him check in just in case. I'm worried about him, so I'll get right to it. His texts are starting to scare me. The following is our latest text conversation, 2:30 p.m.
Yo, just parked my car. Heading to the trail now.
You're crazy, man. How cold is it?
Not bad, actually. 30s. You gotta come out here soon. It's beautiful.
Ha! We'll see you in spring when it warms up. Have fun, man. Watch out for staircases in the forest.
Nice, dude. Real fun.
7:44 a.m.
Dude, are you up?
Yes, sir. Okay?
This is so weird. I woke up this morning. There's someone else out here?
On the mountain? Looks like you're not the only winter camper. Lol.
No, not a camper. I can see them on the horizon. They haven't moved. Like, at all.
What?
IDK, it definitely looks like a person, but they haven't moved. They're probably 300 yards away, but standing completely still.
That's super creepy, dude.
Your bottom
Keep me
tower
updated.
is under attack.
9:19 a.m.
They still haven't moved. They made breakfast over the fire and acted like they didn't notice anything. I'm gonna check it out.
Your bottom tower is under
LGHT.
attack.
Let me know. Maybe it's a stump or
Your
something.
bottom tower has fallen.
9:33 a.m.
Dude, it's a fucking scarecrow.
What? Like a farmer's scarecrow?
Yeah, man, what the fuck other kind of scarecrows are there? His clothes are weird, though.
How so?
The clothes are modern. He's wearing a nice black jacket and jeans and stuff. His face is kind of scary. Burlap sack with black eyes and a huge smile switch on. Why is this thing out here? I'm tempted to steal it, what it looks like.
I don't know, dude. I'd leave it alone. Maybe it's some sort of conservation study or something. Like to see if bears will attack it. You might be on camera, and I know you have weed and shrooms on you.
Ha, good point. Speaking of which, time to pack a bowl.
The enemy's middle tower
Have fun.
has fallen.
Ha ha. 3:33 a.m.
Someone is outside my tent.
I'm sure.
Dude, please, this is serious. I can see their shadow.
Call the police, Dylan.
No, I don't want to make any noise. They probably think I'm asleep. I have my knife. I'm texting inside my sleeping bag so they can't see my phone light. I thought I heard a noise and I woke up. I guess I didn't zip up my tent all the way and I assumed it was the wind, but then I saw the silhouette.
WTF, man? Should I call the police for you? Where are you? Latitude and longitude now. Dylan! Dude, please respond and drop a pin so I know where you are. 6:56 a.m.
I'm all right.
Thanks for finally responding. I was just about to have a heart attack. Barely slept. I was gonna call the police or ranger station, but I don't know where you're at.
There's something weird though. The scarecrow is right outside my tent. Someone put it there last night while I was asleep. That's the shadow I saw. I don't like this at all.
Go home, man. Seriously. That's messed up, even if it's a joke.
I'm about 4 miles from my car. I'll text you when I get back to it. Also, I forgot to mention something.
What?
My hat was on top of the scarecrow this morning. Someone must have got into my tent last night while I was asleep and put my hat on its head.
Text me ASAP. That was earlier. Hopefully he gets back okay. 3 dots. It looks like he's responding. 9:13 a.m.
Oh, shit. Someone slashed my tires. And there's another scarecrow by my car.
I like this course.
I've been working with the Denver Park Rangers and police. They're not telling me anything. They said they have the situation under control. I am not convinced. Here's my last conversation with Dylan. 9:25 a.m. Please tell me you're calling the police.
Hang on. I'm going to see how bad of shape the car is in. And yes, I'm calling them.
All right, let me know ASAP. 11:45 a.m. What's going on? 12:30 p.m.
We'll text later. Not safe.
Dylan, please let me know what's going on. 2:15 p.m.
All right, I have a second to catch you up. I can call you, but I have to keep my voice low. This is so messed up, dude. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be here. Also, my iPhone is dying. I'm going to have to switch over to the shitty flip phone I use for work.
What the fuck, dude? What do you mean by not safe?
So I went to try and start my car to get a quick charge on my iPhone and see how bad the tires were. The engine wouldn't even turn over. The scarecrow was standing right in front of my car, a foot away. It smelled so bad, like rotting meat. I called the police and told them about the car, that I was stuck. They transferred me to the ranger station to explain where I was for assistance. That's when it got weird.
What do you mean?
The ranger seemed pretty lax about it at first, like, where are you? Stay calm, we'll send help, stay where you are, etc. Monotone voice, like he's used to it. But But then I mentioned the Scarecrow, and the Ranger was different.
Different?
He became really serious and panicked.
Here's how it went.
Did you say Scarecrow?
Yes, sir.
I need you to be very clear and very honest, son. What exactly did it look like?
I described the one back at camp, wearing my hat.
And you said there is one by your car now?
Yeah, it smells terrible.
What is this one wearing?
Nothing. Just burlap and cloth. This one's face is rounded. Wait. It looks like something is on its chest. It has a piece of paper pinned to it.
Anything else?
Yeah, something is written on the paper.
Son, I need you to listen to me very clearly.
Okay.
I have some bad news. I'm in my truck now, and I was headed your way. The bridge leading into your trail is partially collapsed and impassable. We're not sure how it happened, but we have emergency crews working on it now. I need you to start moving this instant, right now. You are at the north side of the mountain, and I need you to go to the south face. That's where we'll meet. Do you have a compass and map?
Yes, sir.
Good. All right. Here is the exact point to meet.